So how would you like to earn £2,000 with some Betfair trading over the course of just one afternoon? Just head on over, download my ebook or subscribe to my course. Well, no, you don't actually need to do any of that because I have actually told you how this was achieved before. And in fact, on this occasion, I was talking about it in a video that I produced a week before I did it. And what I want to do in this video is go over how I did it and some of the key characteristics on how I would trade in this particular manner so that you can do it in the future. If you're interested in learning to use BetAngel, head on over to our website where you can download a free trial. If you're interested in learning how to use it, then head over to the BetAngel Academy where you can do exactly that. And if you want to talk to like-minded people, then head on over to our forum. So have a look at this P&L. I've earned just over £2,000 in one afternoon over the course of a few races. And of course, the way that I've achieved this is through some Betfair trading process. This isn't some variable outcome on a series of bets. What I've done here is I've gone into the market, I've done something, I've traded out of my position before the race has started. So I know that I've got this money regardless of what happens in the underlying race. And I hear you say, well, this could be a fluke. I could have just happened to have had a very good day on this particular day. But if you look at last year, I did a very similar total. And the year before that, I also did a decent total on Gold Cup Day. And this is because this is one of my favorite days of the year and one of my favorite weeks of the year. And the sort of characteristics that these markets throw off mean that they tend to repeat on a regular basis. This year, I won on 26 out of 28 races at Cheltenham. Last year, I won on 27 out of 28. And the year before that, I won on all 28 of the races. Not sure I like that downward trend, to be honest, but hey, it's still a very good strike rate. And in this video, what I'm going to do is we're going to have a look at some trades. We're going to identify some of the key characteristics of the market if you're an established trader. But for people who haven't done any trading before, I'm going to show you and you're going to tell me towards the end of this video exactly what I would have done in the next market, because there are some very simple ways to actively trade some of these horse racing meetings that can be done pretty much by anybody, even if you have absolutely no knowledge of horse racing form whatsoever. So in this section of the video, what I want to do for you is I want to have a look at a couple of markets from a traditional trading perspective. And from that, I mean, I'm going to be looking at the market, how it traded, and what I would do about it. And if you go back to my Cheltenham preview video, you would have seen me describe these markets before they happened. But the purpose of doing it on this video is to basically reiterate that, but also have a look in a little bit more depth at the things that define how I would likely trade a market. Now, if you've never done that before, it's going to seem like complete gobbledygook to you. But that's okay, because immediately after this next couple, we've got a strategy that pretty much anybody could do as long as you're watching the race meeting. That occurs in smaller race meetings, but it's more a dominant characteristic at some of the bigger meetings, and anybody could basically pursue this trading strategy. So anyhow, let's have a closer look at a couple of markets to describe to you my approach to those markets and what I'm seeing in them. So when we look at this first video, what I'm going to do is just replay this market for you in the background. It's important to understand that when we come across a competitive handicap, the market moves within a narrow range. So you can see it's quite a narrow range that we're moving within this particular market. And the reason for that is when you get a competitive handicap, nobody really knows who's going to win. And that's good because that's how the handicapper set it up. In theory, with a handicap race, all the horses should cross the line together because they're apportioned weights according to their ability. And the net effect of that is that you tend to find the market gets stuck within a narrow range. And at bigger meetings, it gets stuck within a tiny range. And at smaller, lower quality meetings, that range tends to be a little bit bigger, but nonetheless, it does tend to stick within that particular range. So you've got a problem on one side, but a benefit on the other. And one of the problems is that the market isn't going to move much in terms of odds direction. And in fact, if you say to me, where are the odds going to go in this market? I've got a great answer for you. I have no idea. And the way that I trade these markets is I will go in, I will do a make market, I will offer money to the market. I'll go for little one tick gains. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm not expecting the market to move by a large amount. So I scale my trade appropriately. I don't particularly have an opinion on how many ticks it's going to go in one direction or the other, but I do know that if it goes up to the top end of a range, then it's probably going to start coming back down as it attracts backers, and the opposite at the other end of the range, but it will be within that tight range. So my expected gain is going to be small. So I'll go for a small expected gain, and I'll try and do that as frequently as possible. Where I'll abandon a trade in a market like this is if it breaks out of that range above or below, in which case I know that there is money going for it, and therefore I'll decide to stop at that particular moment, or I'll try and hunt for a runner that is staying more typically within its current traded range. So yeah, when you see a competitive handicap, not just at Cheltenham, but in other markets, that's sort of what tends to happen. It tends to stick within a range. You don't tend to get money going for one particular runner or another, and therefore you adapt your trading style to take account of that. You go for small gains as often as you can, and if a trend starts to develop in the market, then you would probably cut your position at that particular point. So yeah, that's the way that these sort of markets trade, and when you see these sort of markets, whether it's at a Cheltenham or at a lower quality meeting, that's the sort of way that you trade it. But the benefit that you have at Cheltenham is that you can use larger stakes and you can do more trades because the market stays open for just that much longer with much higher liquidity. And that's how you would typically trade a market that you see here. Now, when we look at a market that is at a much shorter price, so you can see that this is at evens, this is at decimal odds of 2, you have to adapt the way that you trade, because the first thing that you'll notice is it has a much wider traded range. And rather than try and sort of narrate you through the nitty-gritty actually on screen, it's probably better that I narrate to you just by voice only and highlight some key characteristics that I see in this market that will influence how I will trade it. So because of the shorter price, we're sort of committed to trying to find a direction in this market, and we need to look for clues to that. And you can see a couple of things on here. The money's going to be focused on the front two because they're at short prices and it's pointless on the rest of the field. And you can also see that on the favourite we're near a crossover point, and typically you would lay at a crossover point, but on this particular occasion the issue that you've got is that it's mid-range, and at the bottom of the range you may catch a bounce, at the top of the range you may catch a breakout, but mid-range you're looking at the total traded range and you're sort of saying, well, it could sort of go in any direction from there. But also the sort of things that you should be looking at are the amount of money on the back and the lay side and where that money has been matched, because that will give you good clues as to where the price is likely to go and which runner you should be trading. So if we look at the favourite here, you can see there's the best part of 55,000 at 2 and 204, and there's just over 30,000 at 199 and 2, and there's a 3% difference in the amount of money matched between 2 and 202. On the second favourite, there's about 30,000 at 224, 226, significantly larger amounts down there. You don't need to do many calculations to do that. And there's a 20% delta between the amount of money that's been matched at 222 and 224. So those are the sort of things that you're looking at to try and put the trade somewhat in your direction. You need to have a good idea of where you think the price is going to go. It doesn't mean that it will definitely go that way, but by doing the simple analysis and watching the market for a few minutes will give you an indication as to whether people are willing to back or lay at the current prices. And when you look at markets at Cheltenham, it does this in slow motion, so it enables you to look in much greater depth into the market to understand exactly where the order flow is, what people are backing, what people are laying, and that will give you a clue as to where the direction of this market is headed. Once you've established your interest in the market and things that you're looking at, then you're beginning to start to look for changes in those to give you a clue as to where the price is likely to go. And if we speed this up, you'll be able to see exactly what changes are taking place and how that has influenced the market. So what you see when we're looking at this high speed video is if you look at the odds at 2 and the amount of money that's getting matched at that point, it's beginning to grow, and especially in proportion to the amount of money at 202. So it looks as though it's about to break down, and that will necessarily influence the second favourite. So you could have backed the favourite, although you may not have liked to do that if you're familiar with trading at a crossover point, or you could have laid the second favourite here in order to get a decent trade and take advantage of that differential you saw on the favourite. So the strategy I'm going to talk about now, I've talked about before. It occurs on a frequent basis. All you need to do is just have your eyes open, and in fact, you don't even need to do that now. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, when we look at the first race of the day, typically there's no theme to it. If I'm going to struggle on a race, it will always be that first race of the day. And in fact, the 2 losses that I made at Cheltenham this year were the first race on the Tuesday and the first race on the Wednesday. They were the days when I clocked up those 2 losses, and they were both on the first race. And that's quite normal to have a struggle on those first races, because there's no flow through the market. There's no theme that is particularly developing, and it's much harder to read those particular markets. So on weaker days, I very often don't trade the first race of the day. I start picking things up from that point onwards. But sometimes a theme will develop, and I have talked about this before. But on this particular day, the first winner of this particular day, it was a horse trained by Willie Mullins and ridden by Paul Townend. It was Vauban. And as a consequence, when we look at the activity on the next race after that, there was a little bit of backing activity for, I think it was Stateman, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure it was. That pulled in the price a little bit, simply because of the fact that Mullins Townend had won the first race of the day. And when we get to that particular stage, and Stateman actually went on to win that particular race, then what do you think happened on the third race of the day? If we want to make money by trading, we want to back at a higher price than we lay at, or we want to lay at a lower price than we back at. If we think that the price is going to come in, if we think people are going to back the horse, we would back it at a higher price, trade out before post time, and hedge our position. So what do we think happened to Minella Kakuna in the third race? Do you think people backed it based upon the fact that Mullins and Townend had won the first race and the second race? Do you think that they backed the Mullins runner in the third race? Yes, of course they did. So you could have done this trade as well. It didn't require anything amazing to do it. You would have seen that combination come in for the first 2 races, and you would have known that money was going to go for that horse in the next race. It didn't take a genius to be able to work it out. You just needed to be able to watch TV. And in fact, you didn't even need to watch the TV, because BetAngel can do that for you. If you go onto the forum, you can download a little piece of automation that will automatically alert you if there are 2 winning combinations of a jockey or a trainer, and it will alert you to the fact that that has just happened, so that you can look at the next race and jump on that sort of an opportunity. But in fact, if you were watching the race, you would have known fairly soon what was likely to happen in the next race, and you could have told me exactly what I was going to do. I was going to back the Mullins runner in the third race. So we've looked at a couple of different strategies. There are many different ways of trading the market, but I always think that if you're alert to these sort of opportunities, even if you have no trading skill whatsoever, these are the sort of opportunities that you can take advantage of. It's happened more than once on this particular day, and I have highlighted it before, and I have highlighted it at other meetings. But if you're alert to these opportunities, this is surely the simplest way to be able to do some Betfair trading and being able to profit regardless of what actually happens in the race itself. So hopefully what I've showed you in this video are the sort of characteristics that I see in the markets and why I do the things that I do, how that shapes my particular strategy. When we're looking at the order flow and understanding where the money is within the market, that is something that takes a little bit of skill, and you may not get straight away, but it's something that I do on pretty much every race. But when we look at the final example I gave you, that is a fairly simplistic strategy that doesn't require much explanation. You know, people love those sort of stories. People follow those stories with their money. And as a trader, you can actively exploit those so that you can make money regardless of what goes on in the actual race itself. And those sort of strategies can be enhanced by using features within BetAngel that will alert you to those opportunities when it finds them, because they do occur across a range of different meetings, not just at the big festivals, but it's more notable at the big festivals, especially when there's more opportunity because of the amount of money in those particular markets. Anyhow, I hope that video has been useful for you.